Hey everybody, and welcome to Leia's Lair. Here's our discussion of Disney Gallery, The Mandalorian, Season 1, Episode 5, Practical. So it's business as usual in The Mandalorian Gallery. We get a roundtable discussion, this time about the practical effects they used in making Season 1 of The Mandalorian.
So they got to talk about how they opted to use a lot of puppets and miniatures along with CGI, but a lot of the time they're saying, they would use puppets and miniatures for lighting references, and then they would maybe go over CGI if needed. So a lot of the time they were saying that they would only use CGI in the sense that the puppets could move as well.
Yeah. So they didn't make the puppets do anything or they didn't make the CGI of the puppets do anything extraordinary that the puppets themselves couldn't do.
Yeah, so they would, if they had to do any CGI, it was mostly just for lighting references. But I mean, watching The Mandalorian, it's like you can't really tell when a puppet's not a puppet.
Totally. And this episode I particularly loved because they spent a long portion of the episode talking about Baby Yoda. And man, that puppet is so cute. It is just adorable. And they were just saying a lot of things about how people would just it's like the puppet was literally considered like an actor, and people would be directing the puppet and the amount of work that went into making this puppet and making it so realistic. Like they said from the get-go, trying to draw the puppet out and get an idea of what they wanted Baby Yoda to look like, and all these drawings that people would come up with were either too ugly or not cute enough, or they were kind of funny looking, disproportioned. Until they finally landed on the Baby Yoda that we know. And man, they did such a good job with that little puppet. It said it took them 3 months to make the puppet?
Yeah, so it took them 3 months to make that thing. And there was 4 puppeteers operating it at any given time. So they had one doing the eyes, one doing the gross body movements and head, another was doing the ears and the mouth. And then we had another person doing the body movements, walking, and then the arms as well.
And then I honestly think there was just a 5th fill-in person who could just do any of them if they needed.
Yeah.
So much work went into making Baby Yoda, but the way that you see him on screen, he looks so realistic.
Yeah.
So they talk a little bit too about how Werner Herzog, he was particularly funny when it came to the puppet because he would direct the puppet himself, while he was acting. And then they were also saying how he was telling them they have to commit to the magic of the puppet. They shouldn't be using CGI. And they, I guess, totally agreed with it, because I think for the most part, they did use just the puppet.
Yeah, and that's kind of where the whole, if they did use CGI, it was the puppet was there as light referencing, and the CGI would never do anything that the puppet couldn't do.
Totally.
They also talk about how they wanted to use, these secondary characters a lot more. So, in Empire Strikes Back, we see IG-88, and they wanted to do IG-11 as a cool thing. And they just wanted to make his movements very kind of rigid and just very badass. So what we see in Mando is we see him being able to twist all the way and just shooting up all these guys. It's just how you expect IG-88 would have been. And it's very cool because they said that originally they built a stand-in prop, for lighting references, and it was really rigid, and they ended up using him more than they thought. Whether they went over him with CGI or not, it was those rigid movements kind of stuck, that awkward movement that they wanted to have. He's not a fluid, machine. He's very rigid, but
Yeah, I thought it was kind of cool too, because they said they didn't really want to use a human stand-in for him. They wanted him to be able to do things essentially that humans couldn't do. So when you see him spinning around and doing all those fun movements, they wanted that specifically because they didn't want him to have these human-like movements. And I thought it was pretty cool too. They talk about how they put in Quill.
Yeah.
The Ugnaught, which, side note, Quill is done by a lady, which was not what I expected, considering, he's a male and has a male voice, but, the face that this lady would wear, this actress would wear, had its own, they would have to move the face separately from, what she would do, which was pretty cool.
Also, puppeteering. Very cool, just to see, all the work that goes into these puppets and all that. It looks so great on screen, and you know, a lot of it you're just like, oh, like I wonder how they do that. And this show is showing us how they do that, which is really cool. Yeah, and it's really cool that they kind of talked about how they needed to have an Ugnaught in the show. You know, you see them a little bit in Empire Strikes Back, you know, in that end where they're getting Han and Carbonite. So obviously they want to take these, like, you know, background characters that, you know, everyone kind of knows a bit, but not they're not like the main, you know, they're not humans, they're not the main aliens that they encounter in these shows, but they're kind of background characters, and now they're making them more of a main character in these shows. And I think that's kind of what all of us want. We want sort of to see more of Star Wars, more of the background races,
more of the whole
species
galaxy.
and all. Yeah, we want to see everything. So it's really cool. I mean, even when we got to see Mando, we get to see them return to the cantina after obviously episode 6 and all that. So the cantina is a different place on Mos Eisley than it was back in episode 4, you know, and it's kind of cool to see like that time piece, like what has changed. And I'm really hoping to get some new sort of, get some more insight on new species and all that in the next season. I'm sure they're going to do a wonderful job.
Oh, I'm sure. I think it's pretty cool too, because the movies they tell a very like kind of rigid character-based like storyline. It's always about like the same like family and kind of like their role in the galaxy, but Mando's able to look at what goes on outside of this very like small portion of the galaxy, and you get to see all these other characters. And I think that's what they were saying in the show, like that gives them a bit more like flexibility and like what they can do in the stories they can tell within this whole universe that George Lucas created.
Yeah, it's very cool. I'm really excited to see what season 2 has. And yeah, this episode of the practical effects was really cool. I mean, Baby Yoda, who doesn't love that? The child. And yeah, they also talked about the history of Star Wars, and the practical effects they used before, mostly with like the flying scenes.
And the puppets from before too.
Yeah, and so how that has progressed to now, it's almost made full circle, right? So yeah, it was a really cool episode.
And they like to make miniatures because then they get to keep them after.
Yeah, exactly.
And there you have it. Thanks for watching, everyone. What did you think of this episode? Let us know down below in the comment section. And remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more great videos to come. We hope to see you all again in Leia's Lair.
You are not a Jedi yet.